Well, welcome along to the Sporting Life Time Form preview for day one of Royal Ascot, or Tuesday, as is otherwise known. David Orr joined by Matt Brocklebank to take a look at what is always a fantastic card. This one doesn't let us down at all either. We're going to start with the St James's Palace Stakes for the 3-year-old colt. We're going to pull up the time form graphics for this, Matt, and Chaldean, not Chaldean, Chaldean tops the ratings for Frankie Dettori, 135, but there's potential improvers lurking everywhere.
There's quite a lot in here. He very much rightly tops the ratings as a Kipco 2000 Guineas winner. He not only that, he was a very impressive two-year-old, wasn't he? He made a real name for himself last year and has carried that on. Now, whether some of these, as you say, potential improvers are going to get up towards that level as the year goes on, and if indeed they are at that level for Tuesday's race, is yet to be seen. I think there are one or two that might come up to that level. I've not been completely blown away by Paddington or Chaldean, to be perfectly honest, in their classic victories. They've looked very good on the day. They haven't completely struck me as milers that might really take the division by storm and go on to win the kind of big open age races in this division towards the end of the season. So I think they're potentially vulnerable. They're obviously priced pretty short as well. So I'm going to have a pop at them, I think.
So look at the video replay of Chaldean winning that Kipco 2000 Guineas at Newmarket. Pink cap, noseband, third from the left on the screen there under Frankie Dettori. Now, this is a strange race, Matt. Run on strange, un-Newmarket-like ground. There was the monsoon. Horses August rode down. Little Big Bear didn't fight for Aidan O'Brien. But what you got from Chaldean here was a really polished and professional display.
He was battle hardened, wasn't he, as a juvenile? And like you say, I think the ground probably came in his favour. Let's not forget, this is a son of Frankel who's never run on good to firm ground in his life before, so that's potentially something new for him. He'd had a slightly strange preparation as well, obviously unseating rider as the stalls opened in that Greenham at Newbury as well. But he was cherry ripe for the Guineas. He really toughed it out for Dettori. But as you say, the horse is well beaten off. Who didn't run their race, Little Big Bear and August Rodin, have come out and won the big group races since. But the form in behind Chaldean hasn't really worked out. Obviously High Royale as well, Royal Scotsman, even like Dubai Mile, who ran like what looked like a promising Derby race, was well beaten in the Derby. I find it quite hard to sort of pin the form down, if that makes sense. And you kind of sense that he's gonna run his race. He'll probably try and make the running from stall one. I just think he might be vulnerable on quickish ground against some real potential improvers.
Interesting that Royal Scotsman went to the Irish Guineas after that, was a well-backed favourite, but didn't fire at all. It was never a factor behind the progressive Paddington and Aidan O'Brien colt on the up. He progressed through handicaps, would you believe, into a classic winner at the last time of asking. He's taking on Chaldean, but it's not Paddington who's the one who's catching your eye in this race, Matt.
He's not. I think there are two really exciting runners in this race. Must Have Sheer would be one for John and Thady Gosden. I was really quite impressed with the way that he won at York. We kind of looked at each other, didn't we, in the office, and thinking afterwards, because John Gosden was immediately interviewed and suggested that the horse might have blown his handicap mark for Royal Ascot and that they might have to look at the Jersey Stakes or indeed this race. It is significant that he comes to this race. Obviously the Gosdens have previous when it comes to horses coming from relative obscurity into this race. Palace Pier had only won a handicap at Newcastle. Obviously Without Parole had come through sort of minor races at Yarmouth as well, hadn't he? So while we've had lots of classic winners win the St James's Palace year in year out, it can happen. And I actually think we've got one here in Cicero's Gift, the Charles Hills horse. He's a shrewd cookie, isn't he, Charles Hill? He knows a champion. You know, he's trained lots of really good horses, obviously top class sprinters. One of which was this horse's sire, Muharrar, and Cicero's Gift's just really impressed me. He's got about £10 to find on the time form figures, and that might seem like a lot. He actually ran on Guineas weekend. He ran on the Friday, and he put in a sparkling performance when winning that conditions race at Goodwood. The forms from that's worked out pretty well as well, and the form from his previous run at Wolverhampton under the penalty, when just still looking really quite green, that subsequently worked out very strongly. I think his form as a body of work, it is obviously that chunk below the classic winners. Of course it is. He's not been tested in these kind of waters before, but I think he's got significant potential. I really do think the way that he won around a mile at Goodwood the last time out, I sort of struck me as that could be your Sussex Stakes winner. I really hope he lives up to that billing. He's about 5 to 1. he was a bit shorter a couple of weeks ago after quite a lot of hype around this horse, inevitably. 5-6 to 1. I think if he's 6-7 to 1, he could well drift to a backable price again. I have backed him anti-post. I'm obviously, hoping for the best on that, but about 5 to 1 it might be about the right price.
Let's get the ratings up for the Queen Anne. We opened the meeting with the Group 1 mile for the older horses, and Frankie Dettori, all eyes on him, the Farewell Tour. This is probably the most significant date on the calendar in the Farewell Tour. He's got a top-rated horse too in Inspiral. I think it's quite telling, Matt, that she's making a seasonal reappearance, that she's missed a couple of potential engagements along the way, but Chris Richardson, very un-Chris Richardson-like comment about her in the build-up, talking up her chances. The recent reports of the homework are good, but judging by those ratings, she's got a pound in hand of Modern Games, 2 in hand of Native Trail, and Chindit, who's famous now for trying to take a chunk out of Modern Games in the lock-ins, is close up as well. It looks tight.
It is tight, yeah. So on the back of that, Inspiral does look really quite short, doesn't she? And obviously Modern Games is pretty short as well. They're about 7 to 4 each. I could certainly see Inspiral going off a short price favourite. It's not going to... the whole week's not going to hinge on this for Dettori, but it could really get off to a blockbuster start, couldn't it? She won first time out in the Coronation Stakes at this meeting, looking really impressive last season. Last year did end on that low note, didn't it, in the QE2 on Champions Day. She just wasn't on it that day. As soon as the stalls opened, you kind of knew it wasn't going to be her day. She finished 6th in the end. It's not her running. It's kind of anyone's guess. Obviously, you've got to read between read the vibes from the yard. That they are pretty strong. I think I've got to take her on in my position. I do think there's one that's being significantly underestimated in this market behind Inspiral, because I'm not totally sure Modern Games should be quite as short as he is in behind her. I fully admit that she should be the rightful favourite, but I'm with Hills again here. Mutasabek's being overlooked. He's definitely got excuses for the run in the lock-in. It came only 15 days after the really big performance they put in at Newmarket when winning from Native Trail, giving him weight that day on the Rowley Mile. And when you think about how good that horse is fresh, for him to try and back up just a couple of weeks later was always going to be a big ask for him. And you throw in the fact that he had to go for a stalls test as well. So we had another day away at the races in between Newmarket and Newbury. So I think he had a really busy time of it, and he just ran flat. And if you're willing to overlook that, Mutasabek in the blinkers, he's a big strapping 5-year-old. I still think there's a bit more improvement to come for him. And that performance when he beat Native Trail in the Bet 365 mile at Newmarket, that is only fractionally behind the kind of figures that Modern Games won posted in winning the Lock-in itself. So I'd certainly give him a chance. He's suddenly out to 16, 18 to 1 for this race, when he was quite well fancied for the Lock-in, obviously on the back of the Newmarket win. And you're getting an each way price in a 12 runner field. I think he's going to be up with the pace as well, and I think he can really hang tough and reward each way money.
So there you are. Charlie Hills has a good day at Ascot on Tuesday. So does Matt Brocklebank. All eyes on Frankie's over that Inspiral Chaldean double, which will be very popular. And what a way to start the week. Best of luck with your own Ascot Tuesday wagers.